50 years ago, in the midst of the Cold War, Canada and the Soviet Union took to the ice for an 8-game series which transcended the sport of hockey and etched itself into history. Half a century later, Ken Dryden, one of Canada's goaltenders for the 1972 Summit Series and now an officer of the Order of Canada, reflects on what this series meant to him both then and today in his latest book called The Series, What I Remember, What It Felt Like, and What It Feels Like Now. And Ken is joining us this morning. Welcome back to your morning.
Thanks a lot. Nice to see you, Anne-Marie.
Nice to see you, too. And I described your book earlier as if I went to your house and you opened a photo album and you took me through your images. Because there's, like, this one of you guys getting on the bus to go. I mean, these are amazing pictures and history that you've included in here. When did it dawn on you, as a young hockey player, how important this series was? Not just for hockey, but given the state of the world at that time.
Well, it didn't dawn on me. I mean, I think, what I try to do in the book was to go back to a first international hockey memory I had, which was when I was about 7 years old and listening on the radio to Foster Hewitt from Europe talking about or describing the game between the Penticton V's and the Russians. And after Canada had lost the World Championships to the Russians the year before. So this was a big moment that was covered on CBC, and I was 7 years old and listening to it. And then from that point on, it was always a struggle for Canadian teams to win World Championships or Olympics because at that time they were only for amateur players, and our best players were the NHL, and they were considered professionals. So we would be represented by a series of senior teams. Players that had been professionals before, but were past their best years of their careers. And eventually, the Europeans just got better and better, and finally to the point where the Russians were winning every year. And this, of course, just totally aggravated all of us as Canadians, because we knew we were the best in the world. Everybody else knew we were the best in the world, but the Russians, the Soviets, were described as world champions. So that was the feeling that built up and built up and built up until finally there was a chance in 1972 for our best to play them and finally to set the record straight and for all of the world to know the difference between us.
I've interviewed Paul Henderson about the goal before, and I've seen his perspective, but it was fascinating reading your perspective as the goalie. And you write it so well, it's like I'm on the ice with you looking down. I can really see your perspective on it. As a reminder to some people, Canada, of course, we dropped game 1 of the series, 7-3. Reflecting on the aftermath, you write this: I didn't want to look in any direction. I didn't want anyone to look at me. I don't remember feeling I had let everyone down, my teammates and my country. I was just embarrassed. I didn't want to hide. I wanted the world to go away. And you tell this story about how one of your teammates used your skate as a doorstop and then makes this comment that was the only thing you'd stopped all week. And you describe that, it's like I can still feel that sting of shame the way that you describe it in the book. How hard was it to put all that emotion aside and just play the game?
Well, it's something you had to do because there was going to be a next game. And feeling crushed wasn't going to help. And so that was I think in many ways that was the biggest achievement that we had in that series, is that we hung in there and after a lot of moments where it seemed as if things just were not going to happen. And the thing that was so remarkable in it again is that the utter shock of losing that first game in Montreal. I mean, that was a game where we scored in the first minute. We scored again 5 minutes later. Everything was going in the way in which everyone assumed it was going to go. And then suddenly it was 2-1. Then it was 2-2 at the end of the first period. And suddenly you're in the midst of something that you never expected you were going to be in. And this was going to last. This was going to go for a month. There were going to be another 7 games that were going to be played, and only 3 in Canada and 4 were going to be in Moscow. And we were up against it. And so it was like what I try to do in the book is, as you're describing, is put the reader absolutely absolutely there because at that time the Canadian population was 22 million. Now it's about 38 million. Probably only 12 or 13 million people are old enough to have a firsthand memory of this series. So why does Grandpa and why does Dad talk about this series as if it was different than our own younger person's reference point of the 1987 Canada Cup or the 2010 Olympics? Why was it different? And the only way you can come to distinguish that and feel that is if you are put into that moment. And I had to put myself back into that moment, which wasn't fun a lot, letting in 7 goals in the first game. But in order for the reader to feel it moment to moment to moment, so that by the time you get to the end, you might be able to say, I see what they're trying to say here. That's why Granddad, that's why Dad, who I never believe in his old stories that he tells me, I think I may understand why.
And you have certainly done that. Mission accomplished. The book is fantastic. The pictures are amazing. And your description of all of those moments takes us right there. Ken Dryden, good to see you again.
Thanks. Nice to see you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.